Hello everybody, and welcome back to part 3 of our precision farming series here for Farming Simulator 25. In part 1, we gave an introduction to precision farming, talked about what was new to precision farming, and other things. In part 2, we talked about introducing precision farming to an existing save, as well as what you need to do in order to prepare your soil for seeding. Part 3, we're going to pick up with the aspect of seeding and taking our freshly seeded crop all the way up to the point of harvest. So for that, we're going to have to come back to our precision farming menu, and we're going to need to understand a little bit about our different soil types on the specific fields. We're pretty lucky with our demonstration here in the fact that we have all 4 soil types represented. In field 29, we have sandy loam, silty clay, and loamy sand. In field 28, it's pretty much exclusive sandy loam. And in field 27, we have a large majority of loam and a little bit of sandy loam. And why that's important is because when we seed, we have now an option with precision farming to seed at different rates. We can apply less seed than normal. We can apply the standard amount of seed, or we can apply a high amount of seed to our field. And depending on the amount of seed we put on the field, and depending on the crop, as well as the soil type, well, we're going to expect to have a little bit different results. I've put together some charts, as we've seen in previous videos, and these charts are going to run down the specific crop, the specific soil type, the specific seed usage rate of low, medium, high, and then the potential yield of the seed usage rate to the soil type for that specific crop. Again, as I've said before, this seems like it's really complicated, but to me, precision farming is the old Staples easy button. I can just turn it on auto and just let the thing do its own job, and it will automatically adjust the seeding rates to what is optimal. If you want to take a more hands-on approach, then you will need to have more of this information readily in your head or available to you as a reference point in order to maintain some optimal planting and seeding rates. So the way we read this is wheat with loamy sand on a low seeding rate. We're just going to use approximately 180 seeds per meter squared, or it's going to use 0.01848 liters of seed per meter squared, and the mathematics among you may be able to use this information to calculate out approximately how much seed usage you should have on a field. But of course, the easiest way to do that would be a field with one single soil type, as opposed to a field that is maybe mixed like field 29. Under potential yield, we know on loamy sand, if we use low seeding rate, we can expect an 87.5 yield percentage from base game without precision farming installed. If we do medium seed yield or standard on loamy sand, we can expect a yield of 100% or same yield. And we can expect a 12.5% increase in yield if we do a high seed rate on loamy sand soil with wheat. And this distribution is pretty standard across most crops, with one real exception, and that's going to be canola. So let's take this for sandy loam. 95% yield on low seed rate, 100% yield on standard seed rate, and we don't get a bonus for overseeding on sandy loam. It is still 100%. So the reason these are bold is this is going to be the optimal setting for the least amount of seed for the best yield. So on loamy sand for wheat, use high. On sandy loam for wheat, use medium. On loam, use low, because, well, it doesn't matter how well we seed on loam, we're going to get the same result. And on silty clay, the result is best obtained if we use, again, high seeding rate. Now, the ratios flip a bit with respect to canola. Canola, the optimal seeding rate on loamy sand is going to be 100%, and as well as 100% on sandy loam. It's going to be low on loam, and it's going to be standard again on silty clay. So I again have these charts posted over on my Discord, and you'll be able to see these charts if you wish by joining that. I will have a link to the Discord also down in the description below. You see we toggle through pretty much all of the crops that we're going to seed or plant. And then let's talk a little bit about oilseed radish. Oilseed radish isn't really a harvestable crop, but it is still a crop nonetheless that we will seed. And our best results are going to be obtained by low seeding that crop across all the different soil types. Oilseed radish is also going to come into play with respect to subsidies, which we're going to demonstrate technically in part 4, but we'll talk about it in part 3 because it does deal with seeding our crop. Before we start seeding, let's set our stage again. On field 29, we applied lime and we also applied liquid fertilizer before seeding, but we told the game that we were going to put wheat in the ground. So it applied the amount of nitrogen we should need for wheat on any given soil type. So you see we have 180 kilograms per hectare on sandy loam. If we move over here to our silty clay, we have 160 hectares per, or kilograms per hectare on silty clay. And if we move up here to loamy sand, we have 140 kilograms per hectare of nitrogen for our field. On field 28, we did something a little different in the fact that we applied a single pass of manure on a portion of the field. And we know that if we apply an organic fertilizer, as we learned in part 2, before seeding, we are going to be getting a base amount of nitrogen applied to the soil as opposed to it being tuned to the crop. So here we have a swath that has 70 to 80 kilograms of nitrogen per hectare based on the soil type. And here we have then a base rate of 10 kilograms per hectare of nitrogen that's just left in the ground from previous harvest. On field 27, we applied no nitrogen at all to our field at this point, and we're going to rely on spraying or spreading a fertilizer post-seeding in order to get our nitrogen up to snuff. So we just have some lime on here, so we've raised our pH up, but the only nitrogen is going to be the residual levels as a result of the previous harvest. I've gone ahead and staged a seeder here, and this particular seeder is the Great Plains seeder. It does not have the capability of providing fertilizer at the time of seeding, so we're going to have to come through on all of these fields and seed them or fertilize them post seeding in order to get our nitrogen up to desired levels. Now, before we start our seeding, we're going to want to come back to our precision farming menu. We're going to want to be here on our soil types, and we're going to click on our field. And what we want to do is we want to click on Tramelines. And we need to know the working width of the sprayer that we have before we set our Tramelines. Let's go back to our garage and just confirm our working width is 24 meters for our 3-point hitch Hardy sprayer. So we're going to set our Tramelines here in the precision farming menu to 24 meters. And again, this setting is per field. So you could have larger fields that use a larger sprayer on, and you can have smaller fields that you put a smaller sprayer on. But for this demonstration, we're going to use the same sprayer across every field. And assuming that you do not change sprayers, this will remember this setting per field, and you won't have to change it beyond that. Now that we have set our tramline working width, set to the working width of our seeder, we're going to verify that we do indeed have wheat selected, and we're going to start our seeding process. If we take a look over here at our F1 menu, we can see some general information. We can see that we are seeding at a low and medium seeding rate by the fact that we have the 2 dots selected. If we were seeding at a high seeding rate, then we would have all 3 dots selected. We're seeding at a rate of 300 to 420 seeds per meter squared, because we've now shifted over to a different soil type, and we're now seeding at a high rate because we have 3 dots selected. And our tramline width is set to 24 meters. Let's see this adjust once again as we move into our 3rd soil type for this specific field. Okay, so it must have been the same. I put the charts together but didn't necessarily memorize the charts. As we move back into our other soil, we should also see this, like I said, jump back down to medium. And there it did, because we're under automatic. Now we could change this to turn off automatic seeding rate by hitting U. And in doing so, then we would need to manually adjust the seeding rate if we wanted to maintain an optimal seed application to our soil type in order to minimize the amount of seed we were using and therefore max out our yield based on the amount of seed we were using. I'm just going to go ahead and continue to seed all 3 of these fields, and we'll be back once we start talking about nitrogen application. I want to bring you back in and talk a little bit about our field info screen now that we do have a crop in the ground. You can see down in the lower right, under our precision farming screen, we have sandy loam. I've got perfect pH. Our nitrogen, though, it's pretty bad. We currently have nitrogen level of what looks like 55 kilograms out of 180. This is where we applied that manure. You see our values changing a little bit, but basically it's pretty darn bad. If we move over here to where we didn't apply the manure, it's, well, even worse. And you can see our expected yield is 73%, or 10.1 tons per hectare. I believe that's what that represents. And if we slide over here to where we do have a little bit higher nitrogen, our yield is up to 79% of, that's 11 TOs per hectare. So again, I think that means tons. And our expected potential is 100%. Our yield potential. So we could get best yield if we improved our nitrogen. Over here on field 29, remember we pre-sprayed using the precise amount we needed for our wheat, and we now have good nitrogen, 160 out of 180. And if we look around a bit further, you can see where we have spots where we don't have any crop and spots where we do. Those are the tramlines that are going to show up once we grow the crop. But you see we have expected yield at 96%, and we have our yield potential of 100%. And it's only down just so slightly because we're a little under our nitrogen target for this particular field for whatever given reason. Now we've moved over here to our silty clay. Our expected yield is 89%. Our yield potential is 89, or expected yield, sorry, is 87%. Our tram lines are now visible. Now that we've moved into October, we do have some growth here. So you can see we have even staged out where we can drive into our field with our tram lines. Again, these should be set ideal for our sprayer. Remember, this field had no nitrogen applied to it. So let's go ahead and take our liquid fertilizer and apply that. Now, before we move into fertilizer, I want to talk about the help screen in the upper left. You can see right now we have our F1 menu collapsed, and we still have the precision farming help visible. For some of you, you don't mind that. Others may wish to turn it off. So if you want to turn that off, we're going to come here to our settings, and we're going to come to general settings, and all the way at the bottom, you're going to see precision farming help menu always active. Well, we can turn that off. And when we turn that off, when we have collapsed our F1 menu, it's not there. When we pull it up, you'll see it does appear. So if that annoys you and you want it to go away, then that's how you can turn that off. Remember, we have pulse width modulation now with Precision Farming version 3.0. So I've turned my sprayer on. You can see it's turned on by the F1 menu, the icon there, but we're not spraying anything. Well, that's because our spray bar is not on the field yet. And we can see our flashing, our pulse width modulation with respect to our sprayer. If we stop and back up, our spraying stops because we don't need to apply fertilizer to this portion of the field. You can see our target values, how much fertilizer we're being applied, because again, we are applying automatically the amount of fertilizer that we're going to need. I've equipped this tractor with narrow tires, so we won't have to worry about crop destruction, but we wouldn't have crop destruction in our first stage of growth anyway. You can see at the very, very bottom on the left, we once again have a zoomed in image of our field, and you can see the color changing as we are applying our liquid nitrogen. Areas where we've already applied nitrogen automatically are disabled. Areas where we haven't are being sprayed. And I've equipped this tractor with the passive sensor. So we don't need to turn the sensor on so much, but we can do that with Alt-B. If we had the active sensor, we would definitely need to turn that on for it to take effect. At this point, we're just going to drive the tram lines and make sure we have the entirety of the field covered. Now, I don't know what type of algorithm is used in order to calculate out or lay out the tram lines. It does seem to be rather interesting, and of course, if we had a bigger field, like those over there or other fields on this map, the tram lines would obviously look a bit more, let's just say, contemporary to what we're maybe expecting to see on fields like here, down here in the valley and such. But it is rather interesting because I used hired helper to seed this particular field. So I was kind of curious on how the tram lines would be laid out. But overall, they seem to be laid out fairly logical to what they would be if I applied or seeded the field manually. I don't have too much of an issue with it because I like to do things myself as far as field work and such. But it should be noted that if you hire a sprayer to spray your field, they may not necessarily follow these particular tram lines. And let's just demonstrate that by pulling up the help menu. And we can see this. Let's go ahead and just say okay. And hire the helper. No. This field, he does seem to be following those lines pretty close. So that's pretty cool. I know I saw some posts from some partners in early access of precision farming where they were mentioning hired helpers not necessarily following the tram lines. Maybe that's if we had picked different headlands than the absolute default. Or maybe we just lucked out. Given this small field, there's only so much variance in how a hired helper could do the job. Let's go ahead and check our precision farming menu here. You see where we are with respect to our nitrogen levels across all the fields. You see where we have not applied any nitrogen pre-seeding, that our Tramelines are showing very low nitrogen levels. That should be expected because we shouldn't be spraying nitrogen on areas of the field that don't actually have a crop. Again, our environmental score is not changing. That's fine. Even though we have our target nitrogen, like I've mentioned in the past, the score often doesn't change until harvest. So just know we've done all the steps correctly. We're just waiting to harvest to truly see this score calculate out. Of course, even with precision farming installed, you should go through your other field work processes. You see this field listed as need rolling. We didn't roll the field. This video series is more about the steps for precision farming. But if that is something that you would typically do, then you will still need to do your normal field work that is not necessarily tied to precision farming. You see also we have small weeds. And it's kind of interesting how weeding works with precision farming. It very much incentivizes you to use spot spraying as opposed to using a weeder. And to some degree, I feel that that is maybe a little off from the concept of precision farming and using the most organic and the least amount of chemicals as possible. At least that's the way I interpret it. Let's go here to our EV score. And under weeding, we get a full 30 points if we use spot spray. So regardless of our weed state, we spot spray if we want as high environmental score as possible to get rid of our weeds. If we use a mechanical weeder, which we could do with small weeds, we only get a score of 20. We're not putting any chemicals in the ground. We're using a mechanical method to extract the weeds off the field. I feel that we should get a full 30 points there. If we do the whole field with spraying, not spot spraying, just spray fertilizer or herbicide, across the entirety of the field, we get half points. We only get 15 points. And if we do absolutely no weeding at all, we only get 10. So I would like to see the EV score such that if we use a mechanical weeder, we are incentivized. But it seems like we are really incentivized to use spot spraying instead. Maybe that's because of the partnership with John Deere. And initially in parts 1 and 2 of precision farming, well, the John Deere sprayer was the only sprayer that had spot spraying technology other than mods. That's been changed with respect to precision farming version 3.0, and now we have spot spraying across all sprayers. You see we are spraying our weeds. We've just got patchy weeds here, so it's not going to spray the entirety. That means we're going to go through very little herbicide compared to what we would have gone through normally with respect to this game without precision farming. And again, if we drive over areas that don't have weeds or areas that have already had weeds killed, then we won't have any spraying going on. Let me finish this field and we'll check our EV score and see if it's updated now that we have used our spot spraying on field 28. Toggle back over here to our soil types, and we do indeed have now a boost to our EV score on field 60 because we have provided spot spraying weed control. We haven't done that on field 27 yet, so we will need to finish that out in order to see the total effect of our EV score. Let me go ahead and do just that. Now, many of you may think that Tramelines are a great idea, but some folks may disagree. They may see, like, for example, this field, and they'll see all of this potential crop not being planted because of these tram lines on this particular field. And again, this is a smaller field, so the percent of tram lines to crop is going to be higher than on a bigger field. But you're not forced into doing tram lines. Sure, we demonstrated that in this video because that's a new feature, and that's something that I think a lot of folks will be interested in. But from our precision farming screen, from a soil type screen, remember, if we wanted to, we just could have not set any tram lines, and no tram lines would have been made. Is that going to affect your gameplay at all? No, other than the fact that you don't have those visual tram lines in place. So if you don't want to play with tram lines, you don't have to. Just don't define them and they won't appear. So folks, that's going to wrap up part 3 of our 4-part series on precision farming for Farm Sim 25. Again, in this video, we talked about seeding and soil types, different seed quantities, or low seed, normal seed, or overseeding, depending on the soil types to maximize your overall yield. We demonstrated the spraying technique using pulse width modulation as opposed to just spraying a flat amount of nitrogen across the field. We also demonstrated spot spraying with respect to weeding our fields and talked a little bit about our EV score and with respect to weeding. You can see we have a score of 60 across all of our fields. Now, I'm not too concerned about this because, again, like I've iterated multiple times now, our score will update when we go to harvest. Tillage, we've done no tillage on any of these fields. We simply started with what we were presented with a new game save. So I would not expect our tillage score to actually increase until our second year of gameplay, where we're starting to work these fields again. But I do expect to see a full bump on weed control, pH, and nitrogen when it does come time to harvest. I want to do a little flyover of not only our fields to see these tram lines and how the game laid them out. This one I found rather interesting because this narrow section had none at all. But then I also wanted to fly over some of the AI fields so you get a kind of a gist for how tram lines would be laid out, maybe for a more contemporary rectangular field or just larger fields in general. I'd like to know your thoughts down in the comments below with respect to precision farming, with respect to things that you saw today in this particular video. Are you diving into precision farming for the very first time, or have you been a long time avid fan of precision farming? Love to know, again, down in the comments below. If you have been a long time fan of precision farming, what do you think of the things that have been added with respect to version 3.0? And those of you that are new to the precision farming concept of gameplay, how are you finding it so far? I hope you're finding these videos most useful with respect to understanding what to do when and how precision farming works, and overall changes the dynamic of the standard gameplay. Until next time, happy farming.